How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So in the last video, we spent a few minutes talking about the work order system, my thoughts on the work order system now that we've had to play with it for a couple of weeks, and some suggestions on how I think that the work order system could be improved. Make sure to check that video out if you haven't seen it already. But the news of that came from this article. We got a blue post, some hotfixes, some updates, and there's a bunch of other profession stuff that I thought would be worthwhile bringing to you guys as well. The big ticket item here, the headline, I guess, is the fact that there's been, or there's going to be, with the weekly restarts, a hotfix to the profession shuffle. The Artisans Consortium reputation cheese that people were doing. Wowhead has very politely called it cheese. Some people are using slightly stronger language. Dare I say it, the exploit word. As it was a way for people to practically repeat quests that in theory should have only been able to be completed once a week, and to rack up way more weekly quest completion rewards than maybe they should have done. Without going into too much detail, because I don't want this to be a full guide on how the process went, it was as simple as you'd level up a profession, you'd complete the weekly quests once you'd leveled up that profession enough, before dropping that profession to load up another profession, a separate profession. So this is where it's a bit of a grey area. You're not strictly doing the same profession weekly quests time and time again, but you are rotating through your professions to basically harvest Artisans Consortium reputation. This has meant that there are some people that are way, way, way further ahead than what is probably expected in terms of reputation. This, for most people, is like, well, does it make a big difference? Yes, no. It depends on your personal situation. There are some pretty lucrative rewards that come from the Artisans Consortium reputation. The number one being profession knowledge points. There are books that you can purchase that give you 10 profession knowledge each. These are the big, when people are discussing this topic of conversation, that's the one thing that comes up very quickly, that by the time you max your reputation with the Artisans Consortium, you can acquire 30 knowledge points for your profession. Now, of course, if you get access to those much, much quicker than somebody else, that gives you a sizably competitive advantage over others, which is where people are not best pleased. The reality is, though, is that it has now, or is going to be capped such that you can only complete profession quests twice in a single week. Obviously, you have 2 profession slots. You can complete a weekly quest for 2 professions, and then it's capped. I'm going to be honest. I really do feel that this should have been hotfixed and made not even possible in the first place. It's not like this wasn't widely known on the beta, so much so that there was videos made about it. There was plenty of videos made about it, actually. A lot of people focusing on the Artisan's metal gain from doing this. That will still be available, by the way. If you want to rotate through your professions at quite a sizable cost in many cases to harvest first-time craft bonuses to get yourself a nice stockpile of Artisan's metal. Apparently, Blizzard are fine with that. They've got no issues with you doing that, but they are going to cap the reputation that can be acquired from it. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are in the comments section on this one. I wasn't particularly public about talking about this because, if I'm honest, I didn't want to draw attention to it. It feels kind of exploit-y, but at the very same time, I still don't particularly think that people should have been banned for this. A lot of people, I have the suspicion, are using this as a scapegoat to maybe why they're not making as much gold in Dragonflight as they possibly could, when the reality is it's just super hyper competitive at the moment. It's the first couple of weeks of an expansion. We have the region-wide auction house to play with this time round. Crafting orders is an incredibly competitive scene right now. If you're not spamming trade chat 12 hours a day, you're probably getting significantly less orders than other people are. It's a competitive landscape, but that doesn't change the fact that people did get themselves a significant advantage. One that I would kind of like to see Blizzard do something about, but I still, yeah, call me a fence sitter. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence in regards to, I don't think this is ban worthy, but it does still also kind of annoy me that they're a good 2-3 weeks ahead in terms of progress, which, without doing some very, very sneaky things, you wouldn't have normally been able to acquire. But I'll leave it there for this topic. For that topic of conversation, at least, I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Very interested to hear. But let's move on. So, another thing that's also been changed is that if you happen to be a tailor and you're out into the certain locations where the Azure Loom and the Chrono Loom are located, you can now also fill crafting orders from there as well. Nice little quality of life, I believe. Savior has been added to the crafting order system. It's still going to be a bind on pickup item and requires Dragonflight's engineering to use. This leads into quite nicely that they are adding the intermediate reagents, the finishing reagents, and the optional reagents to the crafting order system as well. The last video, the entirety of the last video was based upon the crafting order system, so I won't talk about the developer notes here too much, other than to say check out the last video on the channel if you haven't seen it already for my overall thoughts on this. Generally speaking, having more things that you can order, I guess, helps, but the reality is I still don't think it actually fixes the key problems. But let's move on. Alchemy then, there's some changes for alchemy. Transmutation crafts have been disabled in order to address an exploit. Now, I know what the exploit is, but I probably shouldn't talk about it publicly, but all I should say is that it's very, very good that they've switched this off for the moment. If you are, as an alchemist, spec'd into transmutation, I can understand this being slightly frustrating, but let's keep our fingers crossed that Blizzard can switch it back on and get this resolved as quickly as possible. Enchanting, with the storms last week, the Primal Frost, Air, Fire and Earth were recipes that were able to be picked up from the storm events. They were bind on pickup. This was not intended. They've made them unbound. So if you are looking for these recipes as an enchanter, keep your eyes on the auction house now, or go out and do some more storm farming. Entirely up to you. You should be able to pick these up now, no problem. Engineering, few changes to engineering here. The Arclight energy surge caused by catastrophic tinker malfunctions will now continue to tick down while offline. Pieces of scrap, sometimes found by specialised engineers, now have a significantly higher chance of dropping when using your bombs or tinkers. The chance to receive some junk items from rummage through scrap has been reduced for specialised engineers. And the rummage through scrap chance to yield a special treasure has been slightly increased for specialised engineers. I guess that's kind of a bit of a kiss curse. They've done a slight nerf, but with a slight buff alongside with it as well. I've not played with engineering all that much. I've leveled up my engineer, but I've not focused on it too heavily. But it's nice to see that they are addressing some of the pain points for some people. Developer note on this. While the main benefit of investing points into the Scrapper specialisation, I love how they called it Scrapper, by the way. Anybody that played in BFA is probably getting PTSD by the fact that they've called it the Scrapper specialisation, but it's fun all the same. The Scrapper specialisation is the significant increase to your resourcefulness. Rummage through scrap is proving to be far less rewarding than intended. The goal of this effect is not to incentivise using your devices at every opportunity, but instead to reward your dedication to your craft by sometimes uncovering something useful or unique. I wonder if they're alluding to something there. I'm wondering if they've added something to the loot pool. Maybe there's, dare I say it, Blingtron? We're going to see, is maybe a Blingtron going to return at some point? I don't know. That's hopium. That's a lot of hopium. But it's nice to see that they're making some changes all the same. Herbalism changes. We've seen that Windswept perk now correctly reduces the distance you're knocked back by building breeze. I was playing on my druid a couple of days ago and this is mighty annoying. It's clearly a bot prevention mechanic, which I think is quite cool all the same, but my lord is it annoying when you get pelted off a cliff when you pick up a Windswept herb. And, you know, the ability to diminish the distance is definitely helpful, so I'm glad that they've fixed that. Scribes then, the Curious Darjin rune is an item that gives specialization in inscription. Should now drop from creatures for scribes capable of specializing. I believe this is a knowledge point, right? That's one of the world drop knowledge points. Maybe this was a little bit difficult to grab hold of. Now you can get it. All good. Fixed an issue where some embellishments were not showing on held in offhand weapons. Okay, just some slight bug fixes there. This is a key one. To my jewel crafting friends out there, of which I know there are many, the Discord has been absolutely popping recently with people people talking about prospecting and jewel crafting and all of the prospecting rates and all sorts of stuff. But this week has pretty much been dominated by the elemental lariat, and lots of talk has been about it. Significantly lower drop rate than what people were expecting, causing some people to get the pattern and to make silly gold off this in the first few days. Some people, I actually know a few members of the community that have been able to not only pick up the recipe in the early days. I know of 2 people that paid over 6 million gold for the recipe, and it took them a little over 24 hours before they broke even. And obviously every day since then they've been in profit crafting these for people. Some people even going as far as to transfer their character from one server to another server, purely because there were some servers out there that just did not have a single crafter. Not a single pattern had dropped on the entire realm. Nobody was able to craft it. And there was a weird market for people, you know, the traveling trader, to actually go from place to place to, you know, land, spend a few hours on a server, craft a whole bunch of stuff. News had spread through the guilds on those servers, and they'd all pile in, get their crafts done, and then they'd zip off to another realm. It was quite interesting to see. Either way, all of that said, though, they have fixed this now, or they claim to have. They've now claimed that it should drop off all of the bosses, but players only have a chance to get this recipe on your first kill of each day, matching the behaviour of other loot that drops from these creatures. Now, this probably won't significantly increase the amount of recipes or the designs that you'll see hitting the auction house, but it will definitely help. So if you are a jewel crafter and you haven't been able to get hold of this yet, or more importantly, if you're somebody that wants this piece of crafted gear and hasn't been able to get it crafted yet, your time will come. Probably next week at some point. It should be much, much easier to find somebody to craft this for you. So good news there. Equally, if you have paid the big bucks for the recipe, maybe, you know, get those crafted orders done nice and quickly, as it may, you know, drop in value quite substantially in the upcoming days. There's some mining changes. They have fixed an issue with the Titan Touch specialization that had the effect descriptions of the 0 point and 40 point perks swapped. The functionality is unchanged. I guess that's just a UI thing then. Fixed an issue that made surveying 30 knowledge perk drop a limited diamond significantly less than intended. This goes hand in hand with the jewel crafting change, actually. This week has been bananas for the price of a limited diamonds. Seeing highs of, in the region, I think on Team NA, these were going for in the region of about 60 to 80,000 gold each at one point for quality 3 diamonds, while over on Team EU, a little bit more modest in the 40,000 gold range for the quality 3 diamonds. All said, though, incredibly expensive prices for just a very single item. I'm a jewel crafter main though, so I've been playing around with this an awful lot, and I understand why they're so expensive. Prospecting to get those diamonds was, woo, it was tough going. You were pretty much in most cases never really getting more than 1, maybe 2 diamonds from an entire stack of ore, and you can start to understand that, you know, 1,000 draconium ore starts to get quite expensive quite quickly. Obviously, you sell the other diamonds and do other stuff with it. That's why I love jewel crafting so much. But having mining help to back up the supply, I think is definitely needed. It's nice to see that this was bugged. So if you had put 30 points into surveying, maybe jump back on that miner, go out there, have a little play again. Let me know what the drop rate feels like now, whether you're seeing significantly more of these, or whether it's, you know, an extra 10% or something, which doesn't really make much difference. The Molten perk 0 now correctly reduces the damage dealt by smoldering ore. It was always fun accidentally ignoring that and then dying to dot damage. Hopefully now the reduced damage will prevent that a little bit. Skinning, there's some skinning changes. Reduces the cooldown of bottled pheromones to 5 minutes, was 30. Significantly increased the bonus cooldown reduction specializations provide towards the elusive creature bait. When players are maxed out in all perks related to elusive creature bait, the cooldown is now reduced by 20 minutes. Was only 13 minutes previously, so you should be able to use your elusive creature bait far more frequently. But there's always a but with Blizzard. They have increased the rewards for skinning the normal, rare, and elite elusive enemies. The normal enemies now only can be skinned by a single skinner. I think it was a bit of a multi-boxers go-to right now that you could drop if you know you get a team of people together, all all spawning the elusive creatures, and then all piling on, skinning them, all getting the rewards. This time around, the normal enemies are only going to be skinnable by a single skinner. Interesting to see that it was 9.2.7. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that one. It was patch 9.2.7 where they made it so that everybody multiple people could skin the same thing. Only, you know, a patch later, they're already starting to roll back on some of that decision just because of the huge quantities of materials that it's producing. Developer note on this one being the rewards for skinning elusive creatures have been equally elusive, so we're improving what it is that they drop. Along with this change though, the normal elusive creatures are only going to be skinnable by a single skinner. The elite and rare elusive creatures will remain skinnable by everybody who participates in defeating them. So if you were joining those groups to do some sort of group skinning, 2x4 skinning, whatever you would like to call them, there is still benefit to doing that, but they've just toned it down a little bit for the basic enemies. Makes sense, right? But there we go. That was the main profession changes. I think the rest of these changes were just for like quest and dungeons and stuff. Yep. That's the main profession changes going into this weekly reset. I hope that covers everything. Let me know if there was anything that really sort of speaks to you personally. I am reading through as many of the comments over on YouTube as possible. Alternatively, jump over to the Discord. There's lots of discussions going over on the Discord. The link for that is down below. There's separate channels for your farmers, for your crafters, and all that sort of stuff. So jump in there, join in with the conversation, and let's all make a little bit of gold together. But I'll leave it there for today. Hope that was helpful for you boys and girls. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you're new around here. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.